Are we live? I think so. I can't really tell. Okay, there we are. Hi, everybody. Hey, Steven. I think it's just you and me right now, but so we'll talk. Okay, so the purpose of today's little event, happy summer, everybody, is groove matrix or feels rhythms. I think let's start with this advice. This is a very holistic thing at first, and then we'll get more specific. I file away. Where's my camera? Okay, it's up there. Every little song that I really like, I kind of store that away in a little area that I'm like, oh, like for example, I just started playing John Lennon's Instant Karma. I really like that song. I know how to play it. We went through the trouble of learning it, so I would advise all of you, to all the songs that you know, think about what the feel is. And so that one, to me, is touching upon that is a swing feel as opposed to a straight feel. So we're going to start there because that's a pretty big differentiation between straight time and swing time. So you may already know this, but to review, let's assume we have 4/4 time, which is 4 quarter notes. Hold on, let me see. Yes, there's regular 4/4 time. 1, 2, 3, 4 is our pulse. Now, usually with, wait, hold on, the lighting is weird. Disco and dance and rock music, that gets evenly divided into 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, which gives us, many, many great songs are in that feel. Oh, let's say Billie Jean. Now, that's even, that's straight time, which has its place for sure. It feels kind of good and square and structural. However, swing time or jazz time or whatever you want to call it, you can take that same bar of 4/4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's nothing that says you have to divide the beat perfectly in half. You can put it into triplets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. A good example of that would be, I put a spell on you because you're mine. The Screamin' Jay Hawkins / Creedence Clearwater Revival song. So that is in what Levon Helm calls triplicate time. So you've divided things into 3. Now swing, full swing, if you notice, what they do here, let me try and get this so that you can see it. Yeah, the first 2 notes actually get tied together of that pair, and that's what gives us the characteristic of jazz and swing. And so if you want to think about if a song is swing or straight, listen to it and see if you can hear or that's going to tell you right away if you're swing or straight. And yeah, drummers, this is a real thing for drummers, being able to swing well. I swing medium okay for a drummer. I'm better on guitar, so I'm better at swinging on guitar. But yeah, it's always a test of a drummer to see how well they can do a shuffle groove. So let's compare some other swing versus straight. We just did Instant Karma. Great song, great chord progression. I could talk about that song for an hour. Now let's click on over to some, well, we'll stay with Creedence. Proud Mary, on the other hand, is straight. It's a good job in the city, working for the man every night. Even. So there's one example of swing versus straight. And so I guess the reason I'm encouraging all of my generous patrons to start to notice this stuff is because a lot of my exercises are all about pick a chord, find a groove, do that, and then do a little fill. So the more aware we are of the grooves that we really like and the songs that we tend to navigate towards, that means we can call upon that. We can be like, oh, I'm going to do a swing groove on a C major 7 and practice my Lydian scale with that. That's the end goal of all this, but we'll see if we get there today. Let's see, we just did Proud Mary, which is straight. Let's go back over to swing, but now we'll riff out a little bit. Let's do some Stooges. Let me put on some overdrive. Let's do Stooges. We'll stay with raw power. That's a I Need Somebody off raw power. Again, listen for that. Yeah, there's a side-to-sideness to swing time that is oh so lovely. It's just a little dirty. It's just a little bit dirtier than straight. And then let's compare that, all tangled up in my wires here, we'll stay with that same record, the iconic Search and Destroy riff from that same Stooges record. You can hear those eighth notes there are even. So it's funny. I talk about this with Jody. Jody's very smart, and so she can pick up on a lot of things, and she plays a bit of guitar too, and she grew up in a musical family. So I don't know how we got on the subject of talking about this, but now, yeah, she'll be like, I think we were talking about, I think something off the new Jenny Lewis record, and she was like, I think that swung. And so yeah, now it's a marital discussion. We'll be like, oh, do you think this song is swung or straight? And sometimes, truth be told, there are some songs that are in between. Great drummers like Jim Keltner, who's on everything, just everything. He's really good at kind of some of that Traveling Wilburys stuff that he's on. It's like you're like, this is kind of straight, but it's kind of swung. That's a whole nother thing. We won't go into that today. But yeah, there is a middle ground too. But my first assignment, to turn my overdrive off, would be to recognize cool, jazzy, swingy things. And you'll tend to find a lot of your favorite songs probably have a good bit of swing to them. It's just, I don't know, at least me, it grabs your ear pretty well. Swing versus straight. Now, we're going to go to another one of my favorite grooves. We're going to talk about what I call the Neil Young halftime shuffle. So this one, and we'll go back. We'll also use Levon Helm because I guess I learned a lot from. There's a VHS that I used to have, a Levon Helm instructional drum VHS that was full of little strange bits of wisdom, and he actually talked about how when the band would arrange songs, they took country songs and things that would be. Well, I'm going to go to key of A. That's a full standard, you can call that the Bakersfield shuffle or Carter style or boom chuck. And he talked about how they cut it into halftime. And a lot of my arrangements you see me play on YouTube are in this groove, this halftime groove. So you started with, but then you chop it down. So we spread it out instead of 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And notice, so this is getting into another thing that I do a lot of. Match whatever a drummer is doing with your hands. So if a drummer is going boom, boom, crack, boom, boom, crack, boom, boom, crack, I'm going to go. And you can imagine it makes me a drummer's best friend because they never have to worry that I'm going to do some complicated pattern that messes with what they're doing. I just watch what they do and I'm like, all right, I'll just play something that's complementary, or play basically the exact same thing. So that groove, which we arrived at by looking at country music and slowing it down to half speed, is really, yeah, I call that the Neil Young halftime shuffle, where it's, we'll go back to, what is that? Down by the River. And this gets into that category. You can actually, the 16th notes are now what's swung. If you listen, but when you deal with 16th notes, yeah, they can also be straight. So that's where that interplay starts to happen. But that's a groove that I, a lot of the times, I'm like, well, I'll just click over to that. Like that's kind of one of my default settings if I'm working on the stuff that I work on. That's why I guess so many of my assignments and lessons are kind of out of that, because it works. Now, another one that I lean on not as dominantly, that I keep tucked away, is the diddly beat. Oh, diddly. That rhythm traces back to Latin American stuff. That's the clave pattern, where, again, this is straight. So this is our, but that that's a Latin thing. We're going to see that in a couple of, well, you're going to see that in a lot of things, actually. So what you really have there, if we're, I'm doing a G chord here. If we got that going, it's interesting because we've got groups of three. We got 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. So some people call this the 3-3-2 syncopation or the diddly beat, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And that you can imagine with a driving thing going. That works so well if you have, two guitar players or several people going and you're not sure what pattern you should do. If it's even, you can probably get away with going. So that's a little one I keep stored away. Now, that's with like a Bo Diddley thing. I was just transcribing. You'll see this probably, whenever I say I'm transcribing something, that means it's about 2 months out from being shot. Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings' version of Billy from the Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid soundtrack, that has the same syncopation. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So Steven's asking, good question. Well, yeah, I gotta do the turnaround. If I count as I play or not, the answer is absolutely not. Obviously, count when you're practicing or learning a thing, and you're working on something. Do it so slow and meticulous. But yeah, when it comes time to actually play, I know me personally, I can't process numbers, finger positions, chords, and all that stuff at the same time. So it's, it's that muscle memory thing of you have to do it enough times that these are doing it automatically, so that then you could think about the other things. But yeah, that's a very good question. It's like you have to think really hard when you're working on something until you get it, and then you don't have to anymore. And that's true of, I think, okay, well, okay, I'll tell this story. This isn't really a story. This is relating an article from the internet that I don't think I even read, that someone told me about cognitive things. They interviewed great athletes, I think baseball players specifically, about how they do what they do. And they were talking to this pitcher, like, okay, so how do you throw that slider? And he's like, oh, well, I guess I put my foot this way and my shoulder this way. And at this point in the rotation, I do this. And they had him do it. And he threw a garbage pitch. He couldn't do it if he thought about it. But then they're like, never mind, just throw one. And he's like, okay. And he could throw it perfectly. So I think that there's something about that is very true, that like you work on this stuff a lot and then hopefully you don't have to. Yes, that is my wisdom for that. So I think, yeah, we covered the Billy beat. No, sorry, not, well, that is the Billy beat, but really the diddly beat. Where else did you, I know I talk about it a lot too. I think in that Dickie Betts stutter trick, I think it's in there too. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Is it in there? I think that 3-3-2 thing. 1, 2, 3, 1. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Yeah, you can use it in a melodic context too. Let's do it in a weirder bluesier one. Yeah, now I'm just getting off track a little bit, but yeah, 3-3-2. Very interesting syncopation against that box of 4, because yeah, you know, if you have a square and you're throwing triangles at it, trying to get it to fit back into a square, you're going to get interesting things bumping around. And you can imagine this can go down a whole rabbit hole, and that's where all the Indian, Eastern Hindustani stuff in Prague goes into that realm, where they're like, oh, I'm going to do notes in a group of 5, and eventually they'll get back around to something, but we won't go to that weirdness yet. Now, if we did that, let's talk about going back over to, as Levon Helm calls it, triplicate feel. True, so you could shuffle it and get that cha 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 cha. But if you kept all 3 of those, then you'd be in, well, let's see, that would be 12/8 time, because you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you would do the math. You got 12/8 notes. That's 12/8 time. So that's one of our classic R&B slow jam grooves. For example, Rolling Stones, I Got the Blues. What a great song. Is that on Sticky Fingers or Exile? I think it's on Sticky Fingers. Arguably, maybe the most cohesive and excellent Stones record. And if you listen again, that one, truth be told, is 6/8, which is just 6/8 is really just that. It's just it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, you'd have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. I should do a lesson on that. That's a beautiful progression. So that's 6/8 is definitely reserved for like the classic R&B kind of slow jam feel, the 6/8 and 12/8. I'm trying to think of modern songs that I hear that one. I can't really think of any right now, but yeah, Otis Redding. I'm not going to try and sing these. Do it, don't do it. These arms of mine, they are yearning. Forget the words. To hold you for so long. That's got that great augmented chord, but if you but yeah, Otis Redding, These Arms of Mine. That one's another 6/8. Yeah, it's definitely that one. Now, that covers that. Oh, similar to 6/8, I should have talked about this. The big triplicate is 3/4. The 3/4 is weird. I think we can see that. 3/4 is 1, 2, 3. And so that's 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, everybody agrees we need to. All right, I'll take note. I'll take note. You guys are my patrons. You guys get the VIP votes because you guys caught me. I just wrapped up a shoot literally today, so I shoot everything in batches. What's coming out on Friday? Jolene at 33 RPM is coming out, which is a pretty fun one. And then where are the ones I just shot? What did I shot? Oh, I shot Lovesick, the Bob Dylan song. I shot a thing talking about sixes, and I used Neil Young's Revolution Blues. And this is, drum roll. I finally finished Hoist That Rag guitar solo. It's one of the harder things to transcribe that I've ever done. So Hoist That Rag is in the bag. Hendrix double stops on Gold Dust Woman. That's in the bag. And then I also did a little like strategies for successful guitar solo structuring, little tricks about start here, think about this, that, and the other thing. So yeah, that's what's coming out, the next 5 lessons. But now that means I'm in the cycle of what's the next one's going to be. So yeah, now is the time if you're like really want to suggest something. I have a couple of spots where I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I know I want to do that Rollins Billy thing. I was gonna do a 12-string arrangement of 8 Miles High, and that's the only. So there's a couple of other things that are open to suggestion. So I'll take you guys' suggestions, of course, above everybody else because VIP. What was I talking about? Oh, 3/4. Back to 3/4. The interesting thing about 3/4, it's classic waltz time. So the accenting in 3/4 goes 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, which you really don't hear a lot of these days. The only waltz that comes to mind is Sound of Music, raindrops on roses and whispers on kittens, blah 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 blah, do 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 do. These are a few of my favorite things. That's a good way to remember a nice waltz feel. That's a great song. Okay, so that's 3/4, which, like I said, don't hear too much, but that also means, if you're writing a song or you had like a thing that was almost cool, but you're just like, I don't know why this progression doesn't sound that great or this riff is just not working. Cycle through some of these things. Maybe it should be in 6/8. Maybe it should be a Neil Young halftime shuffle. Maybe it should be the diddly beat. I guess that's the idea, is like if you have a cognitive like understanding of some of the, well, these are all the ones that I think are cool. You have other songs that you really like, but if you build your own groove matrix, then you could take a progression that you had that you were like, I don't know, this thing isn't working for me so much, and oh, there we go. Stephen called out Ed Sheeran. Perfect is in 3/4. Good ears. But yeah, if you are super good with having your own little setup of like your favorite grooves, well then yeah, you can put riffs in there that weren't maybe working in one way, and see if they work that way. Let's keep going because there's a lot. Yeah, and I'll tell you. Yeah, we can do this. It doesn't matter if you guys are my patrons. You don't care if I talk at you for a while. For me, before I even played, I think, any instrument, my grandfather had one of those like cheesy little Casios in his computer room. It was one of those little keyboards that had like, it had the little drum pads on it, but it had the little preset grooves, and it did that, I think they call it like, super chord or auto chord, where you could just press a key and then, turn on merengue and and they would, fill it in for you. And I mean, that was like some of my first experience playing with music, was just listening to what the different grooves were with the different chords. I guess I'm realizing as I'm telling you this right now how significant that was for me and how I learned music. Because like I would, just go up there and Sunday afternoons or whenever we were over there and play around with that thing for I guess a while. Because yeah, I thought it was so cool. So let's now head over to bossa nova. So bossa nova is your classic, Antonio Carlos Jobim with "Girl from Ipanema." Incidentally, there's actually two things going on there. Let's first look at the essential thing about bossa nova is the root movement. So bossa nova has this very dictated which I could write it out, but let's not worry about it. It's a specific dotted quarter note to eighth note kind of thing. Now, even that's pretty cool. The other thing that makes bossa nova interesting is, let's go back to diddly beat and combine that with that, and that's bossa nova. If you listen, up top is going. So it's another derivation of the clave pattern. That's one of those deceivingly tricky finger style things, by the way. I don't even, well, you could work on that. If you were gonna work on that, sure, let's take our time. We got an F major 7 here. So I'm just grabbing my F, the classic Neil Young, Bob Dylan way, and I'm gonna wrap my thumb around to get the first fret there. Now we get our thumb going. Hold on, let me see if you can see that hand. Now these 3 fingers are all on those top 3 there, and the first step I would just put them on the backbeat on 2 and 4. So that's your first step. Now, if you really wanted to get it complicated, you'd get the. So. But I really wouldn't bother doing that unless you're like, I will now become a Brazilian bossa nova expert. I would just do the first one, which is kind of a rock bossa nova. Speaking of rock bossa nova, let's head over to Steely Dan, another arrangement that I have half done. Ricky, don't lose that number. And then let's see if I do it today. Let's get it. So yeah, Ricky, don't lose that number. A great rock bossa nova. Let's see what else we got. Oh yeah, this is interesting. Let's go over. Okay, let's go over and look at reggae. Reggae is a specifically fascinating one. I think if, somewhere on my Patreon page, I put a little, can I play it today? So reggae, the interesting thing, my drummer buddy, Frank, who's kind of one of my mentors, not kind of, he is. I don't know if I mentioned this before. So I work at a studio in Carborough. Frank is Frank's like my best friend. He's 67. He's an ex-hippie jazz drummer guy. He'll always lay some like wisdom on me. And what were we talking about? So we were talking about reggae. It's like the thing that everybody gets wrong about reggae. And this is more for drummers, but reggae, we're used to rock. The accents are on 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So reggae, the beats reverse. The snare is on 1 and the kick is on 3. Boom, 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 2, 3. So it's a totally foreign thing. And so now when you guys go out, and girls and everybody in between, when you are out in the world seeing a reggae band, watch the drummer. See if they're really a reggae drummer, or if they're a rock drummer playing a rock beat while everybody else is going. Yeah, because to me, true reggae, yeah, it has to have that reversal. And like really, when I listen to like Bob Marley and Toots and the Maytals, like the only thing I really hear is that kick on 3. There seems to be anything else can happen other than that, and then there's that 1, 2, boom, boom. That's what I observed so far. I'm not a reggae expert, but that's definitely something I notice. Let me see. Well, I'll just keep going. If that was reggae, surf rock. What is surf similar to? Yeah, I guess. Well, hold on. We'll pause for a second because I feel like you're starting to see what I'm doing here. I guess if we circle back around. So your main assignment, and this doesn't have to be in a cognitive, super expert way, would be to, like, the songs you know and you like to play a lot, start to like go back again and listen to the drummer and see if you can sort out, is this swung? Is this straight? Is this halftime? Is this one of those weirdo half between swing and straight songs? And then, is there a syncopation? Is there a diddly beat going on? Is this 6/8? And that's great if you can do that. But even at the very least, like just having a list that you're like, for example, one beat that I always like keep stored away is the beat from Ticket to Ride. It's not even guitarable. The boom, crack, boom, boom, crack, boom, boom, crack, boom, boom, crack, boom, boom, crack. That great beat, Ringo, great drummer, great feel. That like I just keep that as like, if the song needs a bridge or an intro, I'm like, the Ticket to Ride beat. So it's like I remember things iconically by name. Oh, Billy Joel, Say Goodbye to Hollywood. Boom, 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 boom. Like I store these things away, and they help me again when I'm composing or practicing and getting bored of my usual is the Neil Young halftime shuffle. It's like that's my go-to thing. So I have to consciously be like, oh, let's go to rock bossa nova, or let's do surf. Since I said surf, let's discuss what that is. Surf has a double snare hit. Because the drummer would be going boom, 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 or I guess. Yeah, boom. So yeah, that's and surf. The cool thing is you can take that beat and it doesn't have to become a surf song. You can just take the rhythm. I guess I've covered what I wanted to say. Obviously, you could kind of, I guess things we left out. We left out Motown and funk. We didn't really talk about. We didn't talk about disco. There's obviously all different subsets, but I guess I would leave you with, the idea of making your own little compilation of grooves and kind of starting to play around with them. Because I feel like there's a lot of times we don't think about that. We're thinking about scales and cool chord shapes. We're not thinking necessarily about what rhythm we are doing them in. And that rhythm is everything. When things happen is as important as what happens. That's true in life and music. I'll leave you with that for today. Thank you all so much for being my patrons. Stay tuned for tomorrow's video of Jolene, and whatever else I put on the internet. Have a good weekend. And